afternoon, and thank you for joining. My name is Jonna with the Nest Egg Builder. Today we have Chantel Rhyme? How do you say that?
It's just Chantal Riam.
Chantel Riem. Okay. And today she is going to share some tips for social media. And Chantel is the owner and founder of DBT Marketing, also known as Design by Telly, with a background in education. Chantel developed a keen understanding of learning and adaptability, which she has successfully transitioned into her entrepreneurial ventures in digital marketing. As a mother and business owner, Chantel skillfully balances the demands of family life with the complexity of running a business. Her experience has shaped DBT Marketing into a company that values familiar bonds and community, ensuring these principles are reflected in their business practices. Chantel's unique approach to digital marketing, especially within the real estate sector, aims to harness the power of social media platforms to bring meaningful connections. Her expertise is particularly valued by real estate investors who benefit from her strategic insights and ability to create impactful marketing campaigns that drive results. Excellent. Welcome, Chantel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. If you want to go ahead.
Oh, you just want me to start from here? Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So can you see my, I don't know if can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, so I don't know if I click on it, it's not allowing me to make it. Usually if I just click on it, it opens up. But I can just go from here. So
Okay.
yes, so I'm Chantal and I own a digital marketing company and we specialize in real estate investors. And so we do everything from social media, website design, email campaigns, newsletters, blogs, anything digital, we do. So usually when we have our clients, what we like to do is we like to start off with a base on how to build your audience, how to get people to know who you are and how to build your brand. And social media is one of the biggest ways that we do that. So what we do is we teach people how to navigate these platforms and we teach them how to get people off the platform where some people try to keep people on the platforms. And so what I mean by that is if we keep people on the platforms, that means we're working for these platforms. So if our goal is just to get likes and comments on LinkedIn and keeping people on, that means we're kind of working for LinkedIn. So we need these platforms to work for us. And how do they work for us? It's us getting our clients off of them, right? So getting them to our website, getting them on a call, doing all of these other things, because we've all been on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we're constantly scrolling, right? So we want people to stop scrolling. And if we just keep them on, then they're just scrolling to our competitors. Where in an email campaign, how many investors is someone going to be following or subscribing to the newsletter? So with social media, we like to highlight on what platform you're going to be in. Because if you're a real estate investor, you're probably not going to spend a lot of time on TikTok, but you are going to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. And if you're a fitness person, you're probably going to spend less time on LinkedIn and more time on platforms like TikTok or Instagram. So the most important thing when you are doing your marketing, especially social media and navigating them, is knowing where your audience is. So knowing where your avatars are hanging out. So, and wherever they're hanging out, that is the platform that you want to spend most of your time on. And another thing that we also want to do is sometimes we'll post too much stuff that may seem a little salesy. We are people, right? People buy from people. So the one thing that we want to make sure we're doing is that we're showing people who we are. So we're building that trust. So when we do ask them to go off on a phone call, they kind of already know who we are. And you'd be surprised with a lot of our clients that go into in-person speaking events. When they walk into a room, people already know who they are. And they have no idea who these people are, but they know, oh, I follow you on LinkedIn. I really like this. I like how you do your construction tip Tuesdays or whatever it may be, because we're building a brand, whether it's a personal brand or we're building your investment or your family office brand. We're building a brand, and we want people, when they're scrolling through, they know who we are. And we also want people to look forward to our post. So that's that. With social media, we want to post, we want to be consistent, but the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to leave our marketing right at social media. And that's where a lot of people fail, is that they think social media is their marketing. So what we want to make sure we're doing is, when we're posting, we're getting people to our websites. So how do we do that? So we like to do things like a blog. So if we'll put a blog on our website, and then we'll do a post on our blog, and then we'll get that traffic to our website. Another thing that we always have is we make sure that when people do go to our website, that we have some type of subscribe button. So we want them to subscribe to our newsletter. We want them to get a freebie or something like that. We want to make sure that we are getting people off the platform, and when people do hit our website, that we know that they're there. We're giving them the option, because sometimes what ends up happening is people just have that investment portal, so invest now button. So if you haven't built that trust, and someone stumbles upon your website and they're not ready to invest with you, we need to be able to give them another option where we can still nurture that relationship. Or even sometimes it's just book a call. Well, people really don't know what we're about, or even want to talk to us just because they visit our website one time. So that's when those subscribe or their freebie buttons, that's when those are really important, because now I can nurture you through a weekly email campaign, or even if it's my monthly newsletter, I can build that trust through there. And if someone takes the time to give you their email address, it is going to be way better than someone that's adding a connection. Because if they go through and they went on your website, you're giving them some type of value, and you're taking that relationship to the next step. When we're getting followers and connections, sometimes people will only connect with us just for the sake of hoping we connect back. And sometimes you'll see a lot of people, they might do what I do, or there's a lot of spam. It's really hard to navigate who's my avatar from who really wants to invest with me, or who just, is just hanging out, if that makes sense. So when someone gives you their email address, they tend to be a little bit more serious about investing in you. And that means if it's your product or your services, or if you're selling property or whatever it may be, people want to invest with you. If they give you their email, they're pretty serious. So that's why we have to make sure we have those buttons on our websites. So I like to have a button on each page, even if it's just at the footer subscribe, because we never know. Sometimes people don't go to our home pages, right? So, and that's another mistake, that people will just have their call to actions on one page. So I like to have a call to action, at least two call to actions on 2 pages, whether they're different. And then I always have the subscribe to my newsletter on my footer. So just keep that in mind, that you have those call to actions. So when people are getting off of social media, because you have to think of this as a funnel, right? So here you are, I have you on my post. Now I'm taking this to the next level. You're on my website. Now I'm giving you the option to stay connected. So we want to make sure that we're giving those opportunities, because if we're not, we're wasting connections. We're wasting, opportunities for ourselves and also for our clients. So this is just basically the same thing. So building our email list, and people think emails are dead. And here's an example of last week, I put an email out of how people are using social media a lot less, and how they're posting a lot less, and it's more personal. And within that email, I had 2 old clients that were kind of like, hey, yeah, I need to get back on this. So there's 2 old clients that one of them came back, and another one just did a discovery call. So I got 2 clients off of that one email. So email marketing does work. And why does it work? Because I'm the only social media manager that they're following, that they're getting emails from. So that's what you want to be. You want to be the only investor, because I'm assuming everyone here is an investor. You want to be the only investor that's showing up in that person's email. So keep that in mind too. So again, those are the subscribe buttons. So we want to make sure we're giving them the opportunity. So that's a newsletter, a freebie, even a discovery call, anything like that. Here's some frequent questions we ask. Leave your questions below if you have one where they're emailing you. We always want to try to get an email, because if we get on a call, we don't usually call people back, right? People don't call you back. But if we get an email and they're not wanting to invest with us right away, at least we know, even if it's, a year or 2 years by now, by like later, that we know that we're nurturing them and we're still top of mind with those emails. So we want to make sure that we're growing that email list. It's very important. And then like making sure that our email list is gold. Like a lot of people, they don't put their email list in a safe spot, or they just build an email list and they don't do things with it. So we want to make sure that we have a consistent, whether it's a newsletter or we send out a market update every single Wednesday, something like that. We want to make sure that we're going to be consistent with our emails as well. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Oh, Chantel, I've got them. They can't unmute yet.
Oh, okay. They can't unmute yet. Okay. So again, we want to nurture our leads. So we want to make sure that when we're doing social media or email campaigns, that we are people and we're not looking at our email list or following. We're not looking at these as numbers. We have to be aware that behind these emails, behind these connections, that they're actually people. So we don't want to just be emailing people or just, posting. What we want to do is we want to also do targeting emails, and we also want to do targeting engagement. And so what I mean by that is that we want to, on social media, if we know that someone's our avatar, so a lot of our clients are engineers, so they want to target other engineers to invest with them. So one, hey, we have something in common. And two, now I can target people. So if I go and I leave a comment on someone's page, I have control over them seeing me, because I know that they're going to see my name, Chantel, and they're going to see my comment. Where if I just post something, I'm letting the algorithm decide who sees it. I'm letting the algorithm decide who sees my name. Where we want to try to avoid that. And that's the same thing with our email list. When we are sending out emails and people just subscribe, first of all, we want to do even like a drip campaign. So saying, hey, make it personal. Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for subscribing for my newsletter. I wasn't sure if you follow me on LinkedIn, but here's my LinkedIn. You want to make sure that that first email is something personal. So what I like to do is I kind of have a drip campaign, but I like to email people personally to figure out how it is that they got to my page. Like, why did you come to my website? And then I always give them the option to follow me on my socials. You want to be visible and top of mind whenever you can. So even though someone's on your email list, I still want you to follow me on LinkedIn. I still want you to follow me on Instagram. Because again, people are on Instagram and LinkedIn a lot more than they're on their emails. They probably check the emails maybe once or twice a day, and you'll probably only be sending out one email a week. Right? But you could be posting every single day. So that's why all of these things, like all of this funnel and everything that we do, that's why it kind of twines in together. So it was pretty short, because usually I keep it short because people have a lot of questions, and the digital world is so big. It's a big, I could go all day on one thing, like just on social media. I could go just on your website, just on your email marketing. We could go all day on each one. But the one thing that we do want to make sure is that even though we do build these funnels, we can skip steps. So if someone is willing to get on a call with me right from Instagram, then I'm going to take that call. So our goal is always to get someone on a call, because I'm sure with all of you guys, and even myself, I very rarely just nail a client through a DM or an email. Usually it's the call that gets them to invest with me. So
that is cool. That's awesome. I've unmute, people can unmute themselves now.
And then just stop sharing, and then I can take some questions.
Yeah. And I have some if nobody else has some. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I'll dive. Just raise your hand if you have questions. So I'm going to start with, and let's assume somebody's starting a new business or they haven't been on social media, right? Are there things that they should do before they engage somebody like you, like set up their social media, set up a page, build their, can you talk a little bit about when's a good phase to bring them in, or do you think you should start right away so they set up correctly?
Well, now, like, and I've been doing this for a while, so building up a LinkedIn, Instagram, anything from scratch is a lot harder. And because more people are on social media and more people are hesitant to just follow people they don't know, especially business accounts. So what we do, whether you work with us or you do it yourself, we always tell people is that you have to focus more on building your audience, where some people, they'll just make a lot of content and they'll say I have to post every single day or twice a day in the beginning, but it doesn't work that way. You have to try to build your audience, and the way you're going to build your audience is going to be through engaging. So people don't know who they don't know, and I tell people that all the time. You can put something out, but if you only have 10 followers, that algorithm doesn't really have anything to go to. And they're not going to just put you on a discovery page, because the algorithm works by the more likes and comments you get, right? So what you need to do is you need to have really good posts on who you are and what you do. And then you need to focus more of your time trying to build your audience up. And a good number that we like to base our stuff on is 100. So each platform, once we get over that 100 mark, then that's when we start taking our content or our posting a lot serious. But until we hit that 100, we're not focusing on content at all. We're not focusing on getting people off. We're just focusing on building that number. And so the numbers that we like to go to is 100, 500, then 1,000. I think a good base for real estate investors is to have a following of at least 1,000 on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think that is a big number. I think a lot of people do have bigger numbers, but 1,000 people that are targeted towards you is a good number. You have to think that you're asking people for large sums of money. So you're already going to have a lower audience than someone that does a food prep. Like we do a food prep company. Everyone can invest with them, right? They just deliver their food. So obviously your audience is going to be a lot smaller. So what you're going to do is you're going to target who can invest with you. You're going to engage with those people, but you're not going to worry about numbers, because numbers don't really matter. And sometimes what ends up happening is people will come to us and they'll have like 10,000 followers. And then I'll look at their followers and it's like, you know, people that are not going to invest with them. It's like their favorites, like celebrities. They're following like, you know, cooking, like how to cook squash or whatever. And they have like, these are people that they're not following them back, and they're not going to invest with them. So we want to make sure the people that we're following are people that are going to invest with us. Because when people end up on our feed, you know, like when you scroll down your home pages, that's what we want to be taking advantage of by nurturing these people. I don't want Kim Kardashian on my business page, because I know Kim Kardashian is not going to invest with me. And I only say that because big celebrities, always, when we take over an account, they're always following big celebrities. Now, you could follow someone, I mean, everyone knows like Grant Cardone. You could follow someone like him is a big one, because you could target his audience. So the people that follow him, you know that they're investors, and you know that they're going to like that they want to learn more about investing. So you're going to target those people. Now, is Grant Cardone going to follow you? Probably not. Is he going to invest with you? Probably not. But you're still going to get a benefit from following him, because you're going to target his audience. So that's when you want to follow big accounts, is when their audience could invest with you.
Awesome. And so then my next question is kind of system structure. So we have social media, and you talk about driving the business to the website. So now we have social media and a website, and then we're going to capture their content information and load it where, right? I'm assuming to some kind of CRM. Do you have is there a preference? Do you think, do you have like a short list of ones that you think are better or easier to use?
So my number one platform to use is I like to use Wix. If you're thinking about building a website, I like to use Wix because you can have everything in there. You can have your emails, you can have your CRM, you can do your blogs, you can do everything within that platform. But if you have your website like on WordPress, then the next one that I like is I like Constant Contact. But I like Constant Contact for my food prep company. I like it for I have an oil and gas company. Like that's good. For real estate investing, I like Active Campaign. Now, my girls, they hate Active Campaign. They do find it hard to navigate, but it is really good for investors. Like the portals that they have. If you know how to use it, Active Campaign is the one that I recommend for investors. But my favorite one would be Constant Contact if I had to pick one myself.
Awesome. All right, thank you. And then do you talk a little bit about you and your business and how you operate? Do you have levels of service? Do you do any training? And one of the things I'm fishing for here is maybe, something to bring you back for that we can add value here.
So we do. So we do social media. Well, we do our packaging. So we used to have packages that went by level, so you could do like tiers. But then what we found is that because we do so many different types of businesses, that some of our real estate agents or investors didn't need some of the stuff that our food prep company would need or something like that. So what we started doing is we started figuring out what your marketing goals were and what it is that you need. And then we build a package on that, on what the time would be, what kind of designs you're going to be. Is it going to be a personal brand? Is it going to be a business brand? How many times do you want to post a week? And then we build the packages around the client.
Awesome. I think that's all I have. Does anybody else have some questions for Chantel? It's your time to grow your business. She is, yeah, Ted, go ahead.
This is a fairly common question for people in your category. Under what circumstances are you willing to work with a client on a pay for results rather than a pay for activity basis?
So we don't, it's a little bit harder, like, and this is a good question because a lot of people want to know their return on their investment, right? But with social media, it is a little bit harder to say, like, I can have someone that gets lots of impressions and lots of comments and lots of likes, and then I can have one client that maybe gets a little bit less, but gets more DMs, right? Because they have a better investment opportunity. So it is really hard, and we don't go by like analytics. Like we will send you your analytics and we'll send you like, what the growth of your social media, but we don't go on like a package like that. No, we don't. The only thing that we do that for is for ads. So if we were to do an ad, what we do is I like to do it. Some other ad companies will do it. They take a percentage of your ad budget. I don't like to take a percentage of my ad budget. What I do is we take per clicks. So if we have a good ad and people are clicking on it, then you pay us per clicks instead of, hey, we take a percentage of your ad budget. If you don't get any clicks or you get low clicks, we still get paid. So that's the only way, because I feel that it makes my people more based on targeting their audience and getting those clicks, because the more clicks they get, the more revenue they'll get. And the more clicks and the more emails that we get, the more the budget for our clients go up. Then the longer they stay with us.
So can you summarize how you measure your own accountability?
So Well, just what we do is we make sure that our following is growing. We make sure that we're getting the engagement, and then we also make sure that we're getting the traffic to the website. So those are all the things that our clients like. And then on our emails, it's easier to check because we can see how many people click on our emails, right? So we can say like, okay, look, we got this many people to go on to our webinar. Because what we do like to do is we like to make sure we're making content or doing things where we can get those emails. So we're really big on having webinars. So then we'll go on social media, we'll promote our webinars, and then they can see that they got the emails from the webinar, which was from us promoting it. So it's really hard with social media, but I mean, we've had investors and big investors be like for 4 years, right? We have like a lot of big investors that are very tight with their money and they keep on sending it to us. So we do specialize in working with real estate investors, but I don't like to say that there's some type of return because it's really hard. So an example, we had one client that was like, you know, it's really hard. I can't really see where my money's going. And then through one of our posts, she was able to get on a big podcast. She was on a huge podcast because of our social media. She was on a huge podcast. When she was on that podcast, someone reached out to her and she got $100,000 investor. I'm like, well, there you go. That's your return, right? So sometimes we have to remember that our initial engagement or interaction with that started from social media, but sometimes we forget where that relationship came from. And so a lot of our guys, what we also do is we will get our guys on podcasts. So we get our guys on podcasts and we get them on speaking events. So we'll get them on stages, we get them on podcasts, we get them on webinars. We have a huge list. We have a huge portfolio of clients who are always on podcasts. So when one client is on a podcast, what we'll do is we'll reach out to that podcast and say, hey, we have some other clients. Would you like them to be on your podcast? So, I mean, it is hard, but you're not going to find a marketing company that is going to be able to kind of say like, hey, based on this is what you're going to pay. Because with social media, to kind of gauge your return on it is very hard. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
You can keep going.
Yeah, it was a great question though, Ted. Thank you. All right, do we have?
Generally, I find people in this space are unwilling to, let's say, to charge based on results because they really don't trust their clients. That's the generality I've observed over the years.
So you're saying like someone like me wouldn't trust the client, or I'm sorry.
I'm not going to personalize it to you specifically.
Yeah, but you're saying, yeah.
But if I talk to 100 people in your category, 90% of them don't trust their clients.
Yeah. Well, I have a really good base of clients, and I definitely trust them all. But I mean, what we really kind of do, and I mean, marketing works. Like it obviously works, and that's why a lot of people invest in it. So I think that itself, and we have clients that they'll leave us, and they're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go on my own. And then they come right back. They'll come right back to us because like, okay, I can see that, you know what, I'm not getting on any podcast. I'm not filling up my calendar. I'm not getting DMs. So I think that before, when they weren't getting any DMs or they weren't doing any of that stuff or getting getting people reaching out to them, then they realize that it is us, right? And then it's their job to try to nurture those relationships.
There's an old quote that goes back, I think, to John Wanamaker, probably 100 years ago now. He said, I know half of my ad budget is wasted. He was a department store owner in Philadelphia. I don't know which one. And anyway, he said, I know half of my ad budget is wasted. I just don't know which half, which really gets down to let's say the service provider's internal accountability for themselves. Right. Measurement. How do you determine what works and what's not, so that we spend, as especially in the small business arena, so that we spend as little on wasted work as possible.
Right, right. Well, the goal is to build your email list, right? That's always the goal. So what we're doing is like a good way to realize how it works is your impressions. How many people are seeing your face, right? Brand awareness. So how many impressions are you getting? How many people are seeing your post? How many people from your post are going to your website? Okay, so I have, depending on your following, I have 100 people that go to my website a month. Okay, so how many out of that 100 people, how many subscribe to something? Because it doesn't, like, if we're not doing marketing, then people just don't know who we are. So I'm putting you out there, and for investing, it sometimes could be hard. So I had one client who would invest a lot, and her investors would come to us and, be like, oh, we haven't, sold these properties, like, what's going on? Like, we're not selling them. And then I would, work myself. I'd get her on podcast. I'd, get her to know other people. And the thing is that the opportunity wasn't really good. So, I mean, as investors, we're asking people to invest a lot of money. So for my food prep company, it's easy. We can go on. We know the people we have. When you sign up, when you order food, how did you hear from us? Social media. How did you hear from us? From our ads. So it's easy to do that. But when we're asking people for large sums of money, they're not going to invest with us, off of social media, like the first time we get it. So the first time we post. So it is a lot harder with you guys to get that return. And sometimes one investor could really be the cost of us for 5 years, right? Like, like you're asking for $100,000. Some people, depending on their packages, are only paying $500 a month on their package. So if you get a client that gave you $100,000 or $50,000, and then that's just one, or if you're getting on podcasts and you're getting all this, it also builds trust. When people go to your website and say, like, wait a minute, this person's been on 20 podcasts, that's gonna vet them. It's gonna be like, I'm gonna put more trust that these people value them. So we're also building that, so when people go, they can say, like, okay, this is a legit person. This is a person that actually knows what they're doing because they've been on these top podcasts. They've been on, whatever podcast. So that is our goal, is to always build the trust. But with investors, it is very hard because you're asking for large sums of money. We're not asking for, $100, $200. So the strategy is a lot different towards if I'm doing one of my fitness people and it's like, hey, come to my fitness boot camp, which is only $100 a month. First month is 50% off. I'm asking people to do, like, if you take a loss off your $50, that's not a big deal. So it is really hard. And then not only do you have to find people who have the money to invest with you, and then we have to find the people that want to invest with you, and then we have to get them to trust you. So, I mean, when you say, like, if you said like a store or a small business or a bakery or things like that, their marketing and their returns on their marketing is not going to be as high, but they're going to see results a lot easier than an investor would. So, I mean, we have lots of investors that, deal with us, and my website is down because we're redoing it. If you went to our website and you've seen some of our testimonials, there are probably some big investors that So the fact that they keep on, with our strategy and how we do things, and we do them all different because some may be multifamily, some may have a fund, commercial real estate. We do a lot of podcasters. So everyone has a different audience or a different kind of niche that they're trying to target. So we have to figure out how we're going to get people to want to invest with them. And every single client we have their strategy is always different.
That's great. Chantel, can you talk a little bit about timing, right? Like how long, and I know it's going to vary, right? And because new businesses are busy trying to run the business, right? And so how long does it take to really get this wheel greased in producing the kind of leads that that you want. And yes, it is up to us as entrepreneurs, once those leads come in, to nourish them and bring them right into that relationship, and to, when they're ready, to be able to close them.
So we like to say, like, it takes about 6 months, like 6 months where it's like everything is running smoothly. All we have to do is just maintain it. So we like just to have it where it's like, okay, this is like what we're doing. We got down what our audience wants, because sometimes what we want to give and what our audience wants are two different things. So sometimes we're like, hey, I want to talk about this, and then we don't get any impressions, but we talk about something we don't like and we get a lot of impressions. So it takes about 6 months where you really see your results, and then after that, it's just maintaining it.
And how long do you think it takes to get everything up and running?
So like it depends on, like, what do you mean by up and running? Like if they're starting something from scratch?
Yeah, or virtually scratch, right?
Yeah. So usually it will take about a month for the social media manager to get to know your audience, and then get to know, your audience, and then what it is we want to send out to them. So it takes about a month to figure out trial and error of what we're going to be posting. And then so it takes about a month to figure out what your audience wants, and then we just start going in and then doing that targeting engagement to build up the right audience. So then we start building up the right audience. If you're starting something from scratch, it takes a lot longer. It definitely takes a lot longer to start things from scratch. It's one of the things that it's the hardest part of the business, to be honest, for us to start something from scratch. It's the hardest thing to do. Yeah. But with starting, like most of our accounts that we do have, especially our Instagram accounts, we've started them all from scratch. So we have some that have about 5,000 followers, all investors or within our clients' niches. And it probably took us a good year to get there. So to get to like a good, decent following on Instagram, it takes about a year. LinkedIn is a little bit different because you have more serious investors, and you can, just do a search and target people a lot easier than you can on Instagram. Plus there's Instagram, you have to compete with like family and things like that. On LinkedIn, it's more professional. So building up a LinkedIn is a lot better. To build up a LinkedIn business page to 1,000, that usually takes us a couple months. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Any more questions for Chantel? Oh, Jamila's coming in. Anything you want to ask? We've got the expert on here.
David had asked a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Patricia.
How is the response for weekly, monthly follow-up on a CRM to respond? I think he's asking.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So the question is, how is the response for weekly, monthly follow-up on a CRM response?
So I'm not sure if I understand the question, sorry.
David, are you able to unmute? It sounds like he might be assuming that you're doing the CRM work. Are you doing the CRM work, or is the...
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, David.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just trying to see what type of response by using CRM, kind of offline, just kind of automated, respond. Try to get a response from somebody as you're, creating your I guess you'd say you're trying to, establish relationship, and you're trying to follow up with somebody, and you have the CRM doing that for you. I'm just kind of curious of the response on that.
So we don't do automation. So with us, we don't do any automation at all. So what we would do is when we do send out something, if we pay attention to who clicks on what, and then depending on what they click on, we'll send that individual some type of email, like a follow-up email. But we don't do automation. We don't use automation at all. for any of our clients, everything that we do is organic. Besides, like, we may schedule like an email or something like that, but that's just through the platform. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just curious on that part of it, what the response is, if it was automated versus not. And then as you mentioned, you're doing the touches yourself.
Yeah. So the reason why we do that is because we can make it more personal. Yeah. So when someone subscribes to our newsletter, what we'll try to do is we'll try to find them on some type of social media if we can find their name, depending, because we ask for their name. So we'll try to find them, and then we'll follow them on LinkedIn or whatever it may be, and then we'll say, like, thank you so much for subscribing to our newsletter. Just so that you know that we followed you on LinkedIn. This is what you can prepare for. Like, they would send out something along those lines. And then so when we do emails, like when we do newsletters, we'll see that someone clicks on our webinar and then they didn't sign up. We'll go and we'll send an email like, hey, I noticed you clicked on our webinar. We were wondering, we noticed that you didn't sign up. Was the button broken? Here's the link, or something like that. So we give more opportunities. If they click on our blog, we'll say, hey, we noticed you clicked on our blog. If you want to learn more, we'd love to get on a call for you, because our blogs are going to have call to actions too, right? So our blogs, if we're a fund, like we just wrote a blog on a fund, our call to action is, hey, if you want to know what fun opportunities we have, let's jump on a call. So if someone clicks our blog, we're going to follow up and see how they enjoyed reading it, or whatever it may be from that email or from that newsletter. So we have a team that does all of this. So I don't do most of the marketing that much anymore. I only have maybe 2 clients, and they're veterans, like people that have been with me for like 7 years. So I don't do the marketing now. So what ends up happening when you do work with us, you work with a social media manager or a manager that manages all your accounts, and then you meet with them, and then you guys kind of strategize on how you want your voice to be.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, how does that work from the entrepreneur standpoint? Is that a weekly meeting? Is that a monthly meeting? Is it back and forth constantly? How does that relationship look?
So usually it's a weekly meeting. Some of our guys that have worked with us for years, they kind of break it down to either once a month or every other week. And then I go into each meeting, I go in once a month. So every client, I'll go into one of their meetings once a month. And they're just strategy meetings. It's just like, okay, I have this fund coming up. I have this webinar coming up. I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to Hawaii with my family, because we want everyone to know the personal side of the business as well, like who they're investing with. So we do like to share the personal part of our investors or whoever we're working with. But usually to start off, it's always once a week. So it doesn't matter what package you get. When you go with us, the first month is always once a week, because things are going to constantly be changing within the first couple months. And then, we go through a lot of, obviously we have a content calendar. So what we do is they will come up with the image. So we have graphic designers, so they'll come up with the image, and then the manager will come up with the caption, and then it's in red, and then our client goes in. Usually we always like to have everything a week or 2 weeks in advance. They'll go in and then they'll change the color. So if they like everything, they change the color to black, and then we know that it's good to go. Some of them will make changes, someone will like, I don't really like this at all. They'll leave us a note. Can we change this altogether? Or I don't like this post, and then we'll redo something else. So we do have a content calendar that we like it to be 2 weeks in advance. And then they just go in and they change everything. Yeah. So and then eventually we get to know our clients' voices. Like, we usually give them like a questionnaire of like, how would you respond to this comment? So then when we are doing engagement for them, that it is their voice. It's not just robotic. Like, we don't just put like great post, right? Like, we don't do things like that.
Awesome. All right, any more questions?
I think Ted has a question.
This one's probably for you specifically, Chantel. Most professionals are looking for, let's say, client relationships that produce annuity revenue, in other words, continuing relationship over a long period of time. How do you evaluate the reasons why somebody would leave you?
You know what? That's a good question. And I own two businesses, and I never get mad when people leave. Whether it's like, because I also own like a basketball club here in Toronto, my husband. I never get mad when people leave. I always ask myself why. And I think when people do leave, it is a great opportunity to ask them why. And I love to get on a phone call and say like, hey, what was it that, like, why did you leave? A lot of the times why people do leave is it's budget, right? Like when things are slow, marketing is the first to go. But I like,
Except that reason about when things are slow, marketing's first to go is probably intuitively absolutely opposite to what should happen.
you're absolutely right.
Because marketing and sales is what produces revenue or produces the, let's say, the incoming flow of cash somehow or other.
Yeah.
To cut marketing and sales seems nonsense to me, because that just essentially puts let's say another crimp in the revenue flow. The issue is, back to the John Wanamaker thing, what's not working and why in the circumstances, so we can eliminate the things that don't work.
Right.
The fun question in that regard is how do we tell the difference between a marketing message that is not getting out versus a marketing message that is getting out and the customers don't like it?
Right. So what our clients, or why people like to stay with us, is that the impressions, right? Like they can see that it doesn't matter that people are seeing their content. And because we are very targeted of who we add connections to or who our audience is, then they know that if they get, 5,000 impressions on this post, then they know that that's 5,000 people that are investors. Because the algorithm is only, if you can target your audience, the algorithm is only going to send it out to people that are investors or your avatars if you do it correctly. So what a lot of our guys do is they go off of website visits and they go off of impressions. So are they being seen? So here's one, like I just took over an account, and they were paying $10,000 a month for their marketing. And then we went in and we looked at their social media, and they had more posts than they did followers. And that should never be, as in marketing, that should never be. You should never be posting or having posting every single day and you have less than 100 followers. And this was for years, they were doing this, marketing people. And he was very hesitant to do business with us because he's like, marketing doesn't work. Like I invested with all these marketing companies and I've gotten nothing in return. So the thing that I say is that you're right, you have to hold yourself accountable, but the only thing I can do is show my clients that people are seeing their content. So people are seeing your stuff. Now, what they do after they see it, I can't be responsible for, but if we have a fund, I can tell you that if I put out my fund, that this amount of people seen it, this amount of people shared it. And then a lot of our guys will go off of their DMs. Like they're constantly getting people in their DMs and then constantly getting on phone calls. So the more you put yourself out there and the more you have a call to action to say like, hey, if you want to learn more, on this fund, send me a DM. Well, you'd be surprised on how many people will send you a DM. So our one thing is always having a call to action. And then as long as people are doing that call to action, that also shows our client. So if I'm saying, hey, if you want to talk about RV parks and why I want to invest with them, let's jump on a call. You'll have someone that say like, hey, I invest in RV parks. I'd love to partner up somehow. But we're giving them the opportunity to get on a call. So whereas some social media managers won't have a call to action at all. So I think that's why our clients like to do business with us. But I mean, I can't say like the return because it's very hard and everyone is different.
Well, I think, and I think Ted, one of the things I use a calculator. right? And it has all the phases. And when I'm listening to you, the part you handle is only part of that, right? And so you have to know your numbers, but you have to be working through this whole equation, right? To your close rate, to your click rate. And do you work with clients that way, right? So they understand, right? Like there's only so much you can do as the marketing person. You're not the sales staff, right? You're not the sales team, and you're also not the business operations. And so it is in investment in capital raising an absolute and Ted does something a little bit different. He is a professional that provides services, but for capital raising, it's an equation, right? And you work that equation. Do you work with clients that way to make sure they understand what that equation is and whether it's on your side, not getting people to go to the website and subscribe? And
so what we usually do is at the end of the month, like we'll send out a monthly package, right? And it really says on like, okay, so these were your impressions. This was your click, like how many people visit your website. This was your best post. This is why we think it was the best post. So we give them all of these like a report. And for my girls, I am the first one to get the report. And if anything is in red or it's not up 20%, then I really start questioning it. So why is this down? Why is this in the red? So as long as we're staying in the green, and the percentage is staying high and we're getting more impressions, our clients can see that, hey, wait a minute, it's like, you know, when you put your impressions or your insights on LinkedIn, like all these platforms are pretty good at showing you when things are up and things are down, right? So we just try to keep them up at all times. But again, I mean, our clients really like it because they can see that people are seeing who they are. When they walk into a room, people know who they are. That's what they want. They want brand awareness. And that's what we're doing is we're building the brand awareness. And with the brand awareness, as people know who that you are, and that trust, and sometimes like the bigger following, people want to do business with you. And we're also highlighting our clients, like when they do good, when they do close a big project, right? Like, because then we're telling people like, hey, you know, this is a hard time right now, but people are still investing in me. People are still investing because a year ago, marketing was very hard. Like if you looked 2 years ago, all you would see on LinkedIn is just close, just close, just close. You would see maybe 5 a day. How many do you see now? You're lucky if you see 1 a week. So things have definitely changed, but the guys I personally think this is the best time to be doing your marketing because the people that wanted short-term money has kind of got out of it. And the people that are staying in it are your veterans, and they're the ones that are doing the best with your money.
awesome. Any more questions before Chantal, if you'll hang on.
Just a brief comment.
Go ahead.
Years ago, I was in the software business, and we had teams that we've eventually called bear hunter teams. The sales guy's job was to shoot the bear, and the installer, which was my job, was to skin the bear. My question to the sales guy was, is the bear dead?
Yeah.
In 5 years, I did about 200 different installations and only lost 2. Average in our business was about 50% loss. So I think I did okay.
Sounds like it.
Sometimes we had to kill the bear before we skinned him, but it was helpful to, let's say, for the sales guy to let me know how much work I really was going to have to do.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chantal. I think we can talk about maybe something specific to bring you back later this year and help people move along.